In 2014, when the first monster manual released for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, some players opened the books and looked at the collection of dragons and went, "Oh wow, that's underwhelming." Why? Because dragons are legendary creatures that live in the imaginations of so many different people, with so many different variations, meanings, and traits depending on a multitude of factors like where in the world you are and how big of a nerd you're talking to. And in the 2014 Monster Manual, there are 10 different colored lizards that have different elemental flavoring and not much else to set them apart mechanically, which makes even less sense when you read the lore and see that these dragons are completely different. From white feral hunters to green manipulative schemers, to the powerful reds who stand above the rest. These dragons in lore have a variety of different personalities, but their stats? Well, that's where they keep people like me wanting. But that's what I'm here to fix today. So far, I've created 3 variants: the Black Wither Dragon, the White Frostfear, and the Red Ruin Flame. And today, as a part of Dragon Week, hosted by Jenny D and Pointy Hat, I am here to create the 4th variant, the Green Prevaricator Dragon. First, let's get into the original Green Dragon to determine what is its lore and vibe. And this is a little complex. After reading through the lore, I'm under the assumption that the 5e iteration of the Green Dragon is a combination of multiple different versions, or at some point they chose to go a different direction with the green chromatic, but kept a lot of things as holdovers from whatever the original version was. I'm sure someone watching will be able to confirm or deny this, but to me it seems like there are 2 different dragons. One dragon is a forest dragon. They are tyrannical hunters and will even eat vegetation, which is odd to me because I don't think I've seen that as a note for any other dragon. They hate elves but love to hunt them, and in their design, they have long necks to look over the trees of their forest. The other dragon is a Machiavellian schemer that prefers to stay away from combat, leaving it to their lessers that they have woven a beautiful tapestry of silken words for. This dragon delights in conspiracies and corrupting creatures to become their servants. Now, I strongly believe that both of these dragons have their place in D&D, but having them be the same dragon feels odd, to say the least. It just seems weird to have this suave, manipulative, honey-tongued spy master in the forest away from people hunting everything they come in contact with. Like I said, I assume that there are dualistic reasons for this, but I'm starting something new here, and as usual, I'm gonna do my own thing. So what I'll be doing today is splitting the Green Dragon into 2 variants, with new lore and making new stat blocks for one of them that you'll be able to download for free as usual. If/when this video gets to 10,000 views, I'll make the other green chromatic variant, but for now, I'm gonna work on the aspect that grabs my attention a little bit more. The Schemer, the Deceiver, the Prevaricator. Give me a moment to tell you the story of this new, viridescent draconic variant. Millennia ago, when the world was still young, and mortals were first grasping the strands of the weave, spellcasters that used magic from the realms of nature formed the first druidic circle. The strongest among them, an archdruid, had a lizard companion that stayed with her always. The archdruid had mastery over nature that was almost unheard of, with the ability to transmute and change creatures to whatever she could imagine. She would talk with people and animals alike, changing bodies and forms to help them in a variety of ways. Some needed to be stronger, some needed to be faster, others simply needed assistance to be comfortable. It's rumored that this druidic master of biological transmutation even created new species, and her faithful lizard companion witnessed all of it. The reptile was also accustomed to having its form changed. Wings were given for travel, claws and teeth for defense. After watching the spells cast by the Archdruid and becoming accustomed to the changes, it adapted and learned to use these powers for itself. The Archdruid's faithful friend followed her everywhere as she led the Druid Circle into a prosperous age. But even when the sun shines at its brightest, there are still shadows that seek to claim their own glory. Some members of the Archdruid's Grove sought to expand their power and bend nature to their will instead of simply living alongside it. But the Archdruid warned against this line of thinking, and while she led the circle, they would never gain power. So the cult sought to bring an end to her reign. In the dead of night, while the Archdruid and her companion slept, the Shadow Dissidents raised daggers laced with a powerful poison. The Splinter Group had found the deadliest poisons in existence and enhanced them with magic until they had what could only be described as a liquid death. When the dagger laced with this poison were thrust into the Archdruid and her closest ally, they both woke to see the poison that ran through their body take hold on the other. But as the Archdruid drew her last breath, her constant companion tried to shapeshift and adapt to the poison that was running through its veins. Fear, confusion, and anger shot through its mind as it tried to adapt, and in that moment, overwhelmed with emotion, a voice touched its mind from beyond the plains. The Mother of Dragons offered it the ability to become something greater, to become something that no poison could ever harm, and with no time to consider the consequences, the offer was accepted. The Mother of Dragons dulled the pain as she gave a blessing that allowed the creature to accept the poison, changing it and adapting it to its physiology. The Mother of Dragons told the lizard that while no poison could harm it now, the full transformation would be slow. It would take time for it to fully adapt, but when it was complete, they would be stronger than they ever had been before, and then they would be one of her glittering jewels. Until then, they would need to survive on their own. While poison could no longer harm them, the damage that had been done was not healed. The crippled lizard flew, ran, and hid away until the assassins lost track of it, assuming that it would never return or quickly succumb to the poison. They returned to the circle and went about seizing control, perverting what the Archdruid left behind. The poison reptile watched everything their friend left behind fall apart. It watched as these druids that claimed to be so wise took advantage of those below them, seeking personal gain at the mistreatment of the natural cycle. The transforming lizard did not watch idly, though. While it was still healing and gaining strength, it went about finding information on each member of the cult. Weaknesses, enemies, fears, strengths to be wary of. After practice, it learned to shapeshift not only as the druids could, but also in ways that would allow it to blend among them as a humanoid. It gave whispers of information at the right times. It would make sure certain accidents happened at the wrong places. From the outside, these seemed like coincidences or strokes of bad luck, but each event put a piece in place for a grand finale. Finally, after years of recovery and planning, their body became one with the poison that was meant to end their life. The lizard became a dragon. It was only then that the Mother of Dragons' voice reached them once again, now giving an order to her new child, an order to get the revenge that they were due. None of the survivors could explain what happened. The only consistent details were that chaos erupted in the grove, with things that seemed completely unrelated all going wrong at the same moment. The sun set on the grove in chaos, and it rose to the silent remains of a catastrophe. The previous leaders of the grove all lay dead in the center. There were scars and obvious signs of battle, but the cause of death was the same for all of them. An immensely powerful poison. The new leader of the grove, an elf with verdant eyes, looked down at the corpses, the results of their work, and then walked into the home of the Archdruid once more. The dragon ruled the grove for centuries under this guise, and in that time they had many children. Due to the blessing they received, these children were full-blooded dragons, and they were taught everything that their parent had learned over their long life. Some of these children desired to spread to nearby forests to take control there, but some realized the power of words that had reformed the grove. These ones spread to cities and other civilized areas, spreading their power and connections far and wide. They began to plan steps farther ahead than anyone could imagine. They made unwinnable scenarios for mortals, and they used their boundless creativity to organize others to fight their battles for them. Not that they couldn't handle the battles themselves. These dragons and their descendants are always assumed to be at the center of any major conspiracy. It is said that they cannot be outsmarted, and while you may feel like you are in control, these green-scaled planners are still always 10 steps ahead of you. Dragon hunters will often joke that these mastermind dragons are a myth, since it's incredibly rare to ever actually come across one. But don't be fooled. The greatest trick a Prevaricator Dragon can pull is convincing the world that they don't exist. And that is the lore of the Prevaricator Dragon. A schemer, a planner, a dragon that can think in a longer sense than any mortal simply because of their lifespan. and can make plans on their plans and even more plans on those plans. These prevaricators will gain power and influence in cities using an alias or possibly even a number of aliases, running businesses and gaining influence behind the scenes. A single prevaricator could be the advisor to the king, ruling the kingdom from the shadows like Wormtongue and Theoden. Or they could spend centuries taking control of businesses and districts with different names and faces until they alone are the entire Merchant's Council. Your players could encounter a prevaricator multiple times without ever knowing. These dragons could be quest givers, using the party to take out their rivals. If the party wins and triumphs over the evil that they were pointed to, the prevaricator now has more space to move and possible power to absorb. These dragons also prefer solutions that are not just a means of force or a violent outcome, because those options are basic and lack imagination. While violence is always still on the table as an option, they will often look for a more creative or entertaining solutions. The ultimate goal is a painful defeat worse than death, with a symbolic resonance to make it all the worse for their victims. An important thing to note about these dragons, though, is that there is a reason they are not called deceiver dragons. While these dragons do stretch the truth, when making a deal they will not lie about their contributions and actions. When they make a promise, they will keep it to the letter. The way these promises are kept are not always the interpretation that the promised party would prefer, but they are always true to their word. Some believe they do this because only mortals lie. Others hypothesize it is because of their draconic honor. But regardless, it is almost universal that in some way, they will always do their best to keep their word. But now that we have lore and a personality for this dragon, we need a stat block. But that raises a question of what's wrong with the original stat blocks in the monster manual. And the answer is nothing, technically. I mean, they're just kind of boring. There's virtually no difference between the chromatic dragon stat blocks in the 2014 monster manual, and as such they have no soul or real flavor. It's just bread with 10 different colored butters that all taste the exact same. To demonstrate my point, let's say that we wanted to make a new purple dragon that deals necrotic damage. All we would need to do is change the breath and extra bite damage to necrotic damage, change its damage immunity to necrotic, decide on a cone or line for its breath attack, but let's be honest, a cone is going to be way more effective, adjust the numbers in its ability scores depending on where it falls in the strength order of the chromatics, and we're done. This stat block would be serviceable, and yes, you can write lore about them and you can run them differently in combat to give them a correct vibe. But how much more will your players understand this new dragon if it has abilities that reflect its personality that were written in lore? As much as I hate to point to the Joker as a great example of anything, his lines about why he uses a knife in The Dark Knight says a lot about his character, and you can show all of that with your stat blocks. Now, I've been talking a lot about the 2014 Monster Manual, and this is the first dragon for me that was conceptualized and written after the release of the new 2024 Monster Manual, so I do need to address it here. The new dragon stat blocks are better. Kinda. I'm definitely gonna have to make another video to go into my full feelings about this, so I don't want to go too deep into it here, but the new stat blocks are less than stellar in my opinion. The main thing that upsets me is that they said they were addressing these concerns that I've mentioned, and they released the Ancient Green Dragon stat block at a convention, but then they walked back on cool abilities to make what is now, well, I mean, it's a stat block. I was going to list all the differences made between the 2014 and the 2024 version of the Ancient Green Dragon stat block, but this video is already getting pretty long, so I'm going to make that its own short later. To sum up my feelings quickly, I think that Chaos and Modify Memory are fantastic addition to the Green Dragon stat block, but I think that most of the rest of it is kind of bland. However, with all that out of the way, let's talk about the Prevaricator Dragon stat blocks. I wrote stat blocks for the Wormling, Young, Adult, and Ancient forms, and you can download them down below, but I'm going to go over the basic details with you here first. The first big change that I made was to the ability scores. For the other variants, I've mostly left these alone, but for the green variant, it felt wrong to leave them when it felt like the stats could be organized a bit better to show the character and give them a bit more variety from the rest of the chromatics. The strength scores are consistently lower, with more of an emphasis on dexterity. Additionally, intelligence and charisma were also a big focus for their stats. These dragons are 5D chess players and have sharp tongues, so I wanted to make sure that it was shown in their stats and abilities and not just lip service from their lore. The AC and hit points were also reworked slightly. However, a big addition that they gained is the fluid form trait. As an action, they can shapeshift into the appearance of any creature that is their size or smaller. Most often this will be used to disguise themselves as humanoids, but adults can blend in with giants and other large creatures since a Prevaricator's desires and plans reach beyond measly mortals. They can also choose to be detected as the type of creature they are shapeshifted into if spells of certain levels would reveal their creature type. Then I finally did give a dragon full spellcasting. These spells can be used in combat, but they also have uses beyond that as well. If a Prevaricator is traveling alongside the party in secret, they can still have a few tricks and bits of utility to assist the party so that they can gain their trust. To highlight some of my favorites, we have Thorn Whip, Message, Charm Person, Command, Identify, Detect Thoughts, Hold Person, Suggestion, Sending, Tongues, Confusion, Greater Invisibility, Dominate Person, Chaos, Scrying, and Mass Suggestion. Each form gets access to higher levels of spells, and the Ancient form tops out at 6th level. Although you can absolutely add or change the spells that your Prevaricator has to fit their personality more, mine are just suggestions. Although to top off their spellcasting, they do have the Magical Creature Spellcaster ability, which allows them to cast spells without verbal or somatic components. Now this is here specifically because a lot of these spells are powerful abilities in social scenarios, and being able to cast them without anyone around you knowing that you're using these spells is undoubtedly useful for a Spy Master. However, as a note, Counterspell does say that you need to be able to see the casting of the spell that you are trying to counter. So if a Prevaricator uses this ability, its spell effectively cannot be countered. Next, I was a bit inspired by what Wizards said they were going to do with the different Draconic presences. And even if they didn't actually do it, I would hate to let a good idea go to waste. So I changed the Frightening Presence to Charming Presence. Once per turn, the dragon can attempt to charm a creature within 120 feet. If the creature fails the saving throw, they cannot harm the dragon until the charm is ended. The bite and claw attacks got the usual adjustments, with poison damage scaling a bit higher as the potency of the poison gets stronger at each stage. Also, the bite attack now has a chance to poison the target on a hit. The tail of the Prevaricator, however, has small spines to deliver its poison to its victims, and whenever a creature is struck by it, they must pass a Constitution saving throw or suffer a random effect of the poison. This could be extra damage, a penalty to attack rolls, or falling asleep for a moment, all depending on the poison of the spine that connected with the creature. The breath attack's numbers were altered and rebalanced, but it also can have an effect of slowing the body. When a creature fails a saving throw against the poison breath, they receive a D4 penalty to their saving throws for 1 minute or until they fail another saving throw against the dragon's spells or abilities. For legendary actions, the Detect and Tail Attack actions stayed, with the Prevaricator gaining Draconic Spellmaster, which allows them to cast certain spells or cantrips as a legendary action. The Noxious Smoke action releases a poisonous sphere of gas around them that blinds creature, allowing the Prevaricator to then reposition freely. And lastly, the Ancient form specific legendary action, Manipulating Maestro. Every group of people will have disagreements, and an Ancient Prevaricator can harness those bits of repressed anger for a split-second outburst. If a creature fails a saving throw against this ability, they will attack a creature of the dragon's choice as a reaction, because a Prevaricator can poison not only the body, but the mind as well. But that is everything I have about the Prevaricator Dragons. Well, except for the reminder that you can get their stat blocks for 100% absolute free. Everything I make on this channel is made available on a pay-what-you-want system on Ko-Fi and Patreon, links down below. So if you want to toss a couple bucks my way, I would appreciate it. But if you can't or don't want to, that's totally fine. Just hit the like button if you liked the video, tell me how running the Prevaricator Dragon worked out for you, and go watch the rest of the videos that were made for Dragon Week. Don't forget to watch everything else that was made by talented creators, and if you like me, hit subscribe so you see everything else that's going to be coming out. A video about Cecil Stedman from Invincible and how he fits into D&D and Fantasy World should be coming out really soon. So with that, thanks for watching, take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.